Hi, welcome to Ray's World. I'm your host Sriraj Ray. Today we're here to discuss the horrific events that took place in northwestern Syria along the coastline adjacent to the Mediterranean Sea over the past couple of days. What sends a shiver down the spine and brings a tear to the eye is not only the sheer number of civilian deaths that took place in such a short period of time, but also the nature of the killings. This happened between March 6th and March 9th. Then things started subsiding. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which is a war monitor based out of London, has reported 1,454 deaths overall across 4 regions. That's Latakia, Tartus, Homs and Hama. The War Monitor has given breakdowns of this number. 973 civilian deaths in 39 massacres. Wow. 231 deaths of personnel belonging to the Ministry of Defense, aligned with the government of Ahmed al-Shara. 250 deaths of personnel belonging to forces loyal to the previous government of Bashar al-Assad. These are large numbers indeed. Widespread looting and arson has also been reported. Now that we looked at the numbers, let's look at the nature of the killings. Sky News has reported that women were forced to derobe and march along the streets before they were executed. Another incident is reported of a teenage boy being given a rifle and ordered to kill his entire family. There are videos of piles of dead bodies on the side streets of these regions. Gangs of death squads roamed from street to street seeking out civilians, mostly Alawites. Some Christians also have died. Men, women and children were executed in mass murder massacres. Reuters has reported hundreds and hundreds of civilians belonging to the Alawite community and Christian community taking refuge at the Latakia airport in Hama Air Base, seeking protection, pleading for protection from the Russian forces stationed there. Now, what took place and how did these events come to pass? A new gang of troublemakers is in town. These group of rowdies call themselves the Military Council for the Liberation of Syria and is led by a man called Ghayath Suleiman Dalla. He is the former commander of the 42nd Brigade of the 4th Tank Division of the Al-Ghayath forces, which was a part of the former regime of Bashar al-Assad. This has been reported by the ISW, which is the Institute for the Study of War. It's a think tank based out of Washington, D.C. Now this entity, the Military Council for the Liberation of Syria, has stated that its aim is the complete liberation of Syrian territories from all occupying and terrorist forces. It is this group which allegedly ambushed 2 patrol parties aligned with the Damascus administration under Ahmed al-Shara on March 6th in a place called Jableh, 25 kilometers north of Banyas and 25 kilometers south of Latakia. Following this, Damascus called for backup and reinforcement. Gangs of Sunni militia aligned with the HTS, the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, swarmed to northwest Syria and unleashed hell upon Alawite civilians, Christians, and the Alawite militiamen aligned with Bashar al-Assad. What happened next is for all of us to see. At this point, I'd like to make one thing very clear. Not all Alawites are or were Assad loyalists. A majority of them were simple civilians, and all they want, and all they ever wanted also, was a peaceful environment to raise their families and live from day to day. The Alawites are an offshoot of the Shia sect of Islam. They constitute approximately 10% of the total population of Syria. The rest comprise of the Kurdish people, the Sunnis, the Christians and the Druze. So as you can see, Syria is an amalgamation, a potpourri rather, of different sects and religions. What is a matter of great concern is that these events have the potential for the entrenchment of sectarian lines across Syria, which may lead to the resurgence of civil war reminiscent of the peak years from 2011 to 2016, when we saw street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood firefights. Now moving forward, some food for thought. If Mr. Ahmed al-Shara, formerly known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani, truly wants to transition Syria to a new dawn of inclusiveness and peace, which he has stated are his aims to international observers, he must not make the mistake that was made in Iraq post-2003, which is sort of his backstory also. What was that mistake? It was the de-Baathification of entire Iraqi society and its systems. What happens next? People who belonged to the former regime overnight become unemployed and disenfranchised. They don't get salaries anymore and have, to an extent, lost the respect that they used to enjoy under the former regime. What happens next? They become guns for hire and become pawns in the hands of internal and external malicious forces. Under the circumstances, Mr. Ahmed al-Shara must immediately initiate positive engagements with the minority communities of Syria, which include not only the Alawites, but the Christians, the Druze community, as well as the Kurdish people, to give them assurances that would eventually build confidence in his administration. Towards this end, he could also give roles in his administration to these communities, both in the central and at the local level. And thirdly, most importantly, the process of accountability and judicial prosecution of the perpetrators of the violence that took place in the last few days must start immediately, and this process must be transparent. The international community also has a role to play. Recently, in January this year, Saudi Arabia advised the easing of sanctions on Syria. Similarly, 6 countries of the European Union also advised for the lifting of sanctions in Syria in sectors like energy and banking. This would facilitate commerce in the common folks in Syria, which would eventually help build and maintain democratic institutions in the country, which is very important. Finally, following the fall of the Assad regime on December 8th last year, the US Department of Treasury announced the temporary easing of sanctions in Syria for 6 months on humanitarian grounds. This is a step in the right direction, but the recent conflagration of conflict, sectarian conflict in Syria, could jeopardize this process. I will be monitoring situations in the Levant region for you, giving you updates and analysis as they unfold. Let's send a prayer for the lost ones and their families. See you in the next episode. Cheers.